Yeah, babe. Come live with us. My mom's retired, and she's going to help with our expenses. I heard those words coming from my son Stephen's mouth as he talked on the phone in the hallway. It was 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night. He thought I was sleeping, but I wasn't. For months, sleep had been slipping through my fingers like water. I lay motionless in bed, my eyes open in the darkness of my room. Every word that left his lips stabbed into my chest like something cold and heavy. His voice sounded happy, enthusiastic, as if he were closing a good deal. And maybe it was. A deal in which I was the merchandise. My mom's retired, and she's going to help with our expenses. I repeated those words in silence, them moving in my head like an echo that wouldn't stop. Help with expenses. That's what I was to him now. Not his mother. Not the woman who held him in her arms for entire nights when he cried from colic. Not the one who sold her gold rings to pay for his college. Just a retiree who could help with expenses. I felt something break inside me, something that had been cracked for a long time, but at that moment, it split in two. I didn't cry. I learned years ago that tears don't change anything. I just lay there, staring at the dark ceiling of my room, listening as my son continued to talk to that woman, to Jessica, his girlfriend, the one who never looked at me with kindness, the one who always found fault in everything I cooked, in how I dressed, in how I spoke. Yeah, she doesn't suspect a thing. I'm going to start organizing everything tomorrow. We'll bring her over in a week, tops. Those were the last words I managed to hear before Stephen hung up the phone. I heard his footsteps moving away down the hall. I heard the guest room door close softly. He was staying over that night, as he sometimes did when he had early meetings in the city. I remained motionless, petrified. My name is Helen Mendez. I am 71 years old. I've lived alone in this house for 5 years, ever since my husband Ernest died of a sudden heart attack one April morning. This house is small, but it's mine. We paid for it for 30 years, brick by brick, sacrifice after sacrifice. The walls are white, although time has turned them a dull gray color. There are cracks in the kitchen ceiling that I never repaired. There's a water stain in the corner of the bathroom that grows every winter. But it's my house. My space. The only place in the world where I still feel like myself. Or at least it was until that night. That Wednesday night when I heard my only son planning my life as if I were a piece of furniture that could be moved from one place to another. As if my decisions didn't matter. As if my voice didn't exist. On Thursday morning, Stephen woke up early. I heard him moving around the house while I pretended to sleep. He made coffee, ate something quickly, and he left without saying goodbye. Without knocking on my bedroom door, without a "see you later, Mom." Nothing. Just the sound of the front door closing and his car's engine fading down the street. I got up when silence filled everything again. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I saw a woman with gray hair, short and shapeless. I saw deep wrinkles around my eyes and mouth. I saw someone the world considers invisible. An old woman. A burden. An expense. But behind those tired eyes, there was something else. There was a woman who still remembered who she was before becoming a mother, a wife, a widow. There was a woman who still had dignity. And that woman was not going to let herself be used like this. I ate breakfast in silence. A piece of toast with butter and black coffee. Always the same. I looked out the kitchen window toward the small garden where Ernest used to plant tomatoes. Now there's only dry earth and some weeds growing out of control. I don't have the strength to maintain it. I don't have the desire. Friday. Stephen didn't come. Nor Saturday. Nor Sunday. 3 days without showing up. Without calling. Without a text. He who used to come every 2 weeks at least to have coffee with me suddenly disappeared. And I knew why. He was organizing everything behind my back, preparing the trap, clearing the path to take me to him and Jessica without giving me the option to refuse. Monday morning. I heard a car stop in front of my house. Then another. I looked through the living room window and felt the air leave my lungs. It was Stephen, and he was with Jessica. Behind them, a white moving truck with orange lettering on the sides. 3 men got out of the truck, waiting for instructions. Stephen rang the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times. insistently, as if he had the right, as if this were his house and not mine. I opened the door slowly. Stephen was smiling. A big, fake smile, the kind you put on for photographs. Jessica was behind him, wearing sunglasses and an expensive purse hanging from her arm. She wasn't smiling. She never did with me. "Mom, hey!" "What a surprise. Good thing you're awake. We came to get you. Everything's ready." His voice sounded too cheerful, too forced, as if he were acting in a play. I stayed in the doorway, looking at him without saying anything, waiting. "We've prepared a beautiful room for you in our apartment. You'll be much better there. You'll have company. You won't be alone, and we'll take care of you. Right, babe?" Jessica nodded, but her lips were pressed tight. She didn't say a word. She just looked inside my house with those cold eyes she always had, as if calculating, as if measuring. "Stephen, I don't." "No, Mom, don't say anything. We already talked about this." "Well, we didn't. But I know what's best for you. You're alone here. This house is too big for you. And besides, your pension. Well, we'll all manage it better together." There it was, the naked truth. My pension. My $800 a month, that was all I had left after a lifetime of working. That's what he wanted. Not me, not my company, just my money. The men from the truck were waiting on the street. Stephen made a gesture with his hand, as if telling them to wait another moment. Jessica took out her phone and started texting something, ignoring me completely. "Mom, let me in. We're going to pack your things. It's not much. Just the essentials will do. Clothes, documents, a few photos. The rest we'll sell or donate. After all, you don't need it anymore. Sell, donate. You don't need it." Every word was a sentence, a blow, a silent theft of everything I was. But I didn't move. I stayed standing in the doorway, my hands gripping the frame, feeling my heartbeat stronger and stronger. Stephen started to lose his patience. His smile twisted a little. "Mom, don't make this difficult. It's for your own good. For my good." How many times in my life had I heard that phrase? And how many times did it mean the exact opposite? Stephen took a step forward, trying to gently push me inside. But in that moment, when his hand touched my shoulder, when he thought I was going to give in as always, something changed. Something in my gaze, something in my posture. "I'm not going anywhere, Stephen." My voice came out firm, clear, without a tremor. Stephen stopped. Jessica looked up from her phone for the first time. They both looked at me as if I had said something in another language. "What do you mean? You're not going anywhere?" "Mom, it's all arranged. The guys are waiting. I don't care what's arranged. This is my house. And I'm not leaving." There was a long, uncomfortable silence. Stephen looked at Jessica. Jessica looked at him. They both seemed confused, as if they hadn't planned for this possibility, as if it had never occurred to them that I could say no. "Mom, don't be stubborn. This is ridiculous. You'll be better off with us." "Better for whom, Stephen? For you?" He pressed his lips together. His face turned red. Jessica took a step closer, taking off her sunglasses. Her eyes were hard as stones. "Mrs. Mendez, I don't think you understand the situation. Stephen is trying to help you. You can't keep living alone. It's dangerous. And frankly, you don't have the resources to maintain this house. My resources are mine, and this house is too." Jessica let out a short, dry laugh, full of contempt. "Your resources, $800 a month. That doesn't even cover the lights and water. It covers it for me." Stephen raised his hands, trying to calm the situation. "That's enough. Mom, you're going to go inside, you're going to pack, and we're leaving. Period. I'm not going to argue about this anymore. Then you should go, because I'm not moving from here." And I shut the door, right in their faces. With force, with anger, with all the dignity I had left. After closing the door, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage that had been bottled up for too long. I heard Stephen and Jessica talking outside. Their voices were a confused murmur. Then the sound of the truck starting. Then silence. I leaned against the door, breathing deeply. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my temples. 71 years old, and I was just now learning to say no. Just now defending what was mine. I walked to the living room and sat on the worn-out sofa where Ernest used to fall asleep watching the news. I closed my eyes and let the memories come, because I needed to remember. I needed to feel again everything I had given, everything I had sacrificed, to understand why this betrayal hurt so much. Stephen was born in February of 1979. It was a difficult birth. 32 hours of labor in the county hospital where the nurses were too busy to hear my screams. Ernest waited outside that whole time, pacing the hallway. When he finally heard the baby's cry, he ran in. He had tears in his eyes. "It's a boy," he told me. "A strong boy." Stephen weighed 9 pounds, 4 ounces. He was huge, pink, perfect. I looked at him and felt that everything in the world made sense. I felt that my life had just truly begun. Ernest worked at a furniture factory. I worked cleaning houses. 3 houses a week, 6 days of work. I earned $80 a house, $240 a week, about $1,000 a month. It was little, but it was enough if we were careful, if we didn't allow ourselves any luxuries, if we saved every penny. Stephen grew up in this house. We painted his room light yellow when he was 2. We bought a second-hand crib that Ernest sanded and varnished until it looked new. I sewed his clothes. Pants from cheap fabrics I found at the market. Shirts I made by hand from scraps. Stephen never had new shoes until he started elementary school. He always inherited them from the children of the ladies I worked for. But he didn't know. I never told him we were poor. I never let him feel less than other children. There was always food on the table. There was always a hug when he got home from school. There was always someone waiting for him. When Stephen turned 7, Ernest had an accident at the factory. A table saw cut off 3 fingers on his left hand. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks. The company didn't pay for anything. They left us alone. I had to work double, 5 houses a week, 7 days, no rest. I got up at 5 in the morning and returned at 8 at night. Stephen stayed with my neighbor, Mrs. Peterson. She watched him for $5 a day, $35 a week that came out of my salary. Ernest fell into depression. He stopped looking for work. He said no one wanted to hire a man with a mutilated hand. He said he was useless. I cried silently at night while he slept. I cried from exhaustion, from frustration, from fear, but I kept going because I had to, because Stephen needed me. The years passed. Stephen finished elementary school, then high school. He was always a good student. He got high grades. The teachers said he was smart, that he had a future, that he could go to college. College? That word sounded so distant, so impossible, but I wanted to give him that. I wanted him to have what I never had. I wanted him to study, to be someone, so he wouldn't have to clean other people's houses or work in dangerous factories. When Stephen finished high school, he came to me with a brochure from the state university. He wanted to get a business degree. Tuition cost $500 a month, plus books, plus transportation, plus food. In total, about $700 a month. I earned about $1,000 a month. Ernest had found a job as a night watchman and earned $800. We had $1,800 a month between us. The mortgage was $400. Utilities, $150. Food, $400. We had $450 left over. If Stephen studied, we would be left with... Wait, that didn't add up. Let's see. $1,800 in. $400 for the mortgage, $150 for utilities, $400 for food. That's $950 in expenses. We had $850 left over. If college cost $700, we'd only have $150 left for everything else. It was impossible, but I said yes. I sold my gold rings, the ones Ernest gave me when we got married. They were the only valuable thing I had. I sold them for $2,000. With that money, we paid for Stephen's first 4 months of college. After that, I had to find more work. I started washing clothes at night. The ladies would bring me bundles of dirty laundry and I'd wash them by hand in the utility sink. $10 a load. I washed 5 loads a night. An extra $250 a week. $1,000 a month. With that, we covered the college costs. My hands became covered in calluses. My back started to hurt all the time. But I didn't care. Stephen was studying. Stephen was going to be someone. For 4 years I worked like that, non-stop, without rest, without complaining. Stephen graduated with honors. He got a job at an accounting firm. He started earning well. $3,000 a month. Then $4,000. Then $5,000. He moved into a condo downtown, a small but nice place. I thought he would invite us to visit, but he never did. He said he was too busy, that work consumed him, that he'd come by when he had time. The time never came. Ernest died when Stephen was 32. It was sudden, a heart attack while watching television. One moment he was there, breathing, alive. The next, he was gone. I called Stephen, crying. He arrived 2 hours later. He stayed for the funeral. 3 days. Then he left. He said he had to get back to work, that he couldn't stay any longer. He left me alone in this house, with the memories, with the silence, with the absence. The years passed. Stephen came to visit me once a month, sometimes every 2 months. Always in a hurry, always looking at his watch. We'd have coffee, talk about unimportant things, and he'd leave. Then he met Jessica. He introduced her to me 2 years ago. A tall, thin woman, with straight black hair and cold eyes. She worked in advertising, earned more than Stephen, came from a family with money. You could tell by how she talked, by how she dressed, by how she looked at me. From the beginning, I knew she didn't want me around. I saw it in the way she greeted me. A kiss in the air, without touching me. No warmth, as if I were contagious. "What a cozy house," she said the first time she came. And I knew cozy was her polite way of saying old and ugly. Stephen changed when he started dating her. He became more distant, colder. The visits became even more spaced out. The calls became shorter. I became an obligation, something he had to do, but that bothered him. And now this. Now the plan to take me to live with them. Not out of love, not out of genuine concern, but for my pension, for my $800 a month that they thought they could manage better than I could. I opened my eyes. The living room was in shadows. The sun had moved and no longer came through the window. I looked at the wall clock. 2 hours had passed since Stephen left. I got up from the sofa and walked to my bedroom. I opened the closet and looked on the top shelf. There was the shoebox where I kept my important documents. I took it down carefully. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Inside were my birth certificate, my marriage certificate, Ernest's death certificate, the deed to the house, my Medicare card. Everything that proved who I was. Everything that proved this life was mine. There were also photographs. Stephen, as a baby. Stephen on his first day of school. Stephen at his college graduation. Me by his side, smiling with pride. He was smiling too. But now, looking at those photos, I wondered if it had ever been real. If he had ever seen me as anything more than a means to get what he wanted. I put everything back in the box. I put it back in its place. And at that moment, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just wait for Stephen to come back. For him to insist. For him to bring lawyers or social workers or whoever was necessary to force me out of my house. I had to act. I had to protect myself. But I didn't know how. I didn't know where to start. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen, drinking chamomile tea, looking out the window at the darkness. Thinking, remembering, planning. On Tuesday morning, the phone rang. It was 8:30. I was in the kitchen having coffee, still in my bathrobe. I looked at the old phone mounted on the wall. It was Stephen. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. 4. Finally, I answered. "Mom, we need to talk." His voice sounded tense. It was no longer the cheerful, fake voice from yesterday. It was the voice of someone who is losing control and doesn't like it. "We already talked yesterday, Stephen." "No, Mom. Yesterday you shut the door. That's not talking. That's being childish. Childish. Me. The woman who raised him. Who sold her rings for his education. Who washed clothes until her hands bled. I was the childish one. Tell me what you want, Stephen. I want you to be reasonable." Jessica and I spent all night talking. And we came to the conclusion that you're confused, that you don't understand what's best for you, so we're going to give you a few days to think it over. But I need you to understand something. That house is falling apart. You can't maintain it. And you can't live alone at your age. I'm 71, not 90. It's the same thing, Mom. You're a senior citizen. You need supervision. You need someone to look out for you. Supervision. As if I were a child. As if I were incapable. I'm fine, Stephen. No, you're not fine. And if you don't want to accept our help, then we're going to have to look for other options. What options? There was a silence. A long, heavy silence. When Stephen spoke again, his voice was lower. More calculating. There are very good nursing homes for people your age. Places where you can be with people like you. Where there are nurses, activities. You wouldn't be alone. Nursing homes. Places where they put old people when the family doesn't want them anymore. Places where they sit you in a wheelchair, even if you can walk. Where they give you pills to keep you quiet. Where you wait for death staring at white walls. I'm not going to any nursing home. Then agree to come with us. It's the only reasonable option. It's not the only option. I can stay here, in my house. Stephen sighed. A long, exaggerated sigh. As if I were the most difficult person in the world. Fine, Mom. You win. For now. But think about it. Really think about it. Because you can't go on like this. And he hung up. Without saying goodbye. Without an I love you. Without anything. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling the rage rise in my chest. But I also felt something else. Fear. Because Stephen had mentioned nursing homes. And that meant he wasn't going to give up. That he was going to keep pushing. That he was going to find a way to get me out of here. Wednesday. Stephen didn't call. Nor Thursday. The silence was worse than the calls. Because I didn't know what he was planning. I didn't know what would come next. On Friday afternoon, while I was watering the few plants I have in the garden, I saw an unfamiliar car park in front of my house. It was a gray sedan. New. Shiny. A young woman got out, about 30 years old, wearing a black pantsuit and carrying a folder. She walked up to my gate and rang the bell. I opened it slowly, without leaving my property, just peering through the fence. Helen Mendez? It wasn't a question. It was a statement. She knew who I was. Yes. My name is Lauren Adams. I'm a social worker with Adult Protective Services. Your son Stephen contacted me. He says he's concerned about your well-being. I felt the ground move beneath my feet. Stephen had called social services. He was trying to declare me incompetent. To take away my autonomy. My freedom. I'm fine. I don't need help. Lauren smiled. A professional, cold smile. The smile of someone who has heard those words 1,000 times before. Ma'am, I just need to ask you a few questions. It's routine. Your son mentioned that you live alone, that the house is in poor condition, and that you might need assistance. May I come in? No. The word came out firm, clear. Lauren stopped smiling. Mrs. Mendez, I understand this may be uncomfortable, but I have the authority to. This is my house, and I didn't invite you in. If you have questions, ask them from there. Lauren pressed her lips together. She opened her folder and took out a sheet with printed questions. Are you currently on any medication? No. Do you have any chronic illnesses? High blood pressure. It's under control. Can you cook for yourself? Yes. Can you bathe without assistance? Yes. Can you manage your own finances? Yes. Do you receive regular visitors? From whom? Family? Friends? My son visits when he can. My friends do too. It was a lie. I didn't have any friends. The few I had died or moved away. But she didn't have to know that. Lauren wrote something on her sheet. Then she looked me up and down. Her eyes stopped on my old bathrobe, my worn-out slippers, my uncombed hair. Mrs. Mendez, I'm going to be honest with you. Your son is considering starting a legal process to obtain conservatorship. He says you're not in a condition to make decisions for yourself. If that happens, a judge will evaluate your case. And if the judge determines that you need a legal guardian, your son could take control of your finances, your housing, everything. The words fell on me like stones. Conservatorship. Control. Everything. Stephen wanted to take everything from me. Legally. He wanted to declare me incompetent so he could do whatever he wanted with my money. With my house. With me. That's not going to happen. Lauren closed her folder. I hope you're right, ma'am, but I recommend you seek legal advice. This could get complicated, and she left. She got into her gray car and drove down the street. I stood there, clinging to the gate, feeling everything collapse around me. That night, sitting on my bed with the lights off, I cried for the first time in years. They weren't soft tears. They were deep sobs that came from a dark, forgotten place. I cried for Ernest, for the lost years, for the son I thought I had, who never really existed. I cried for myself, for the woman I was, and who I no longer knew if I still was. But at some point, between the tears, something changed. I felt a spark, small, barely perceptible. But it was there. It was rage. It was indignation. It was the certainty that I was not going to let myself be destroyed like this. On Saturday morning, I got up early. I showered. I got dressed in clean clothes. I combed my hair in front of the mirror, and I left my house for the first time in days. I walked 3 blocks to Mrs. Peterson's house, my old neighbor, the one who watched Stephen when he was a child. She was 82 years old now, lived alone too, but her mind was still clear, sharp. I knocked on her door. She opened it with a smile. Helen! What a surprise. Come in, come in. We went into her small, cozy living room. It smelled like cinnamon and coffee. She offered me a cup, and I accepted. Carmen, I need your advice, and I told her everything. From the phone call I overheard to the social worker's visit, Carmen listened to me in silence, nodding from time to time. When I finished, she sighed. That boy was always selfish. I watched him grow up, and I always knew it. But you never wanted to see it. She was right. I had closed my eyes to the signs, to the moments when Stephen showed his true character, because he was my son, because I loved him, because I didn't want to accept that I had failed. What do I do, Carmen? She took my hand in hers. Her fingers were gnarled and cold. You fight. You don't let them. You get help. And you protect what's yours. But I don't know how. I don't either. But I know someone who does. Carmen got up and went to her bedroom. She came back with a wrinkled business card. This man is a lawyer. His name is Arthur Wallace. He defended my cousin when her son tried to take her house. He won the case. He's good. And he doesn't charge a lot. I took the card. It was worn, with bent corners, but the name was clear. Arthur Wallace. Attorney at law, and a phone number. Call him, Helen. Today. Don't wait any longer. I went back to my house with the card clutched in my hand. I went inside, closed the door, and dialed the number. It rang 3 times before someone answered. Hello. It was a man's voice. Hoarse. Tired. I'm looking for Mr. Arthur Wallace. This is he. Who's this? My name is Helen Mendez. Carmen Peterson gave me your number. I need help. My son is trying to take my house. There was a pause. Can you come to my office on Monday at 10 in the morning? Yes, I'll be there. Bring all your documents. The deed. ID. Bank statements. Everything you have. I hung up. And for the first time in days, I felt something like hope. Sunday passed slowly, like a wound that won't close. I spent it organizing documents, looking for old papers in forgotten drawers. The deed to the house was in a yellowish envelope, signed in 1983, 42 years paying for this property. My old ID photo from 5 years ago showed me looking younger, more alive. I also found the receipts for the last 6 months. Electricity, water, phone, all paid on time, all with my name on them. Proof that I was capable of managing my life. That I wasn't confused or lost, as Stephen wanted to make people believe. I put everything in a cloth bag. I left it ready by the door. I barely slept that night. I tossed and turned, thinking about what I would say, how I would explain what was happening, wondering if the lawyer would believe me or see me as a paranoid old woman. On Monday, I got up at 6 in the morning. I showered with hot water until my skin was red. I put on my best dress, a gray one with small flowers that I used for special occasions. I put on a little makeup, just a little powder on my cheeks and pale pink lipstick. I wanted to look dignified, presentable, not like a woman who was losing her mind. Mr. Wallace's office was downtown. I took 2 buses to get there, the first at 8, the second at 9. I arrived 15 minutes early. The building was old, 3 stories, with peeling cream-colored paint. I climbed the stairs slowly. My knees protested on every step. The office was on the 2nd floor. A wooden door with a brass plaque that read Arthur Wallace, Attorney at Law. I knocked twice. A voice from inside told me to come in. Mr. Wallace was a man in his 60s. Gray hair, thick glasses, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His desk was covered in stacked files. It smelled like old coffee and paper. "Mrs. Mendez, sit down." I sat in a plastic chair in front of his desk. I put the bag with my documents on my lap. The lawyer looked at me attentively. Without rushing, without judgment, "Tell me what's wrong." And I told him. From the beginning. From the phone call I overheard. From Stephen's visit with the truck. From the nursing home threats. From the social worker. I told him everything without crying, with a steady voice, as if I were narrating someone else's life. When I finished, Mr. Wallace took off his glasses and cleaned them with a handkerchief. Then he looked me straight in the eye. "Your son wants your money, and he wants the house. That's clear. The conservatorship is the legal way to get it. If a judge declares him your guardian, he can sell your property, manage your pension, and you won't be able to do anything. That can happen. It can, but it's not going to." He took out a notepad and started writing. "You are lucid, coherent. You can make decisions. That's already an advantage. Now we need to build a solid defense. First, we're going to get a medical certificate proving you are in full command of your mental faculties. Second, we're going to draft a will where you specify what you want done with your assets. Third, we're going to prepare a revocable power of attorney where you designate someone you trust, not your son, to represent you if you need it in the future. But I don't have anyone else. I only have Stephen." The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Nobody? No friends? No distant relatives?" I thought of Carmen. I thought of the few people who still said hello to me on the street, but no one was close enough. "All right. We can designate a public defender for now. Or myself, if you trust me. I trust you. Then let's start. This is going to cost money, Mrs. Mendez. My fee is $500 for the whole case, plus the costs of the medical certificate and the notary. In total, about $800. $800. More than I earned in a month. But I had no choice. I can pay it. I have savings. Good. I'll draft the documents today. Tomorrow, I'll take you to a doctor I trust. And by Wednesday, your son will receive a notification that you are legally protected." I left that office feeling something strange in my chest. It wasn't happiness, not yet. It was relief, the feeling that someone was finally on my side. But when I got home, the feeling disappeared, because Stephen was at the gate, waiting for me, with his arms crossed and his face red with anger. "Where were you?" His voice was a growl, not a question, an accusation. I was out. Out where? That's none of your business. Stephen took a step toward me. He was shaking, with rage, with impotence. "Everything is my business, Mom, because you can't take care of yourself anymore. You're doing crazy things. I talked to Mrs. Peterson yesterday. She told me you went to her house, that she gave you the number of a lawyer. What are you planning?" Carmen? My only ally had betrayed me. Or maybe Stephen had pressured her, intimidated her. I didn't know. But the damage was done. I'm protecting what's mine. You have nothing to protect. Everything you have, I gave you. I've been paying for this house for the last 10 years when you couldn't work anymore. That's a lie. It's not a lie. I checked the receipts. They're in your name, yes. But I made the deposits. I paid the mortgage when you ran out of money. So this house is mine too. I felt the earth open up beneath my feet. It couldn't be true. I had paid for the house. Ernest and I. For 30 years. You're lying. Stephen took out his phone and showed me the screen. They were screenshots of bank transfers, of deposits made to the mortgage bank's name, with dates from the last few years, with amounts of $400 a month. See? I paid, not you. So if you want to play hardball, I can play that game too. I'm going to prove that you didn't pay for this house, that I did, and I'm going to demand my share. It wasn't possible. I didn't remember Stephen paying for anything, but my memory of the last few years was confused. There were months when the money wasn't enough, months when I didn't know how I was going to pay, and Stephen had shown up with envelopes of money, saying it was a gift. Not to worry. It had been a trap. It had all been a trap from the beginning. Stephen put his phone away and looked at me with contempt. You have two options, Mom. Either you come live with us the easy way, or we start a legal process where everyone will find out that your son had to support you because you couldn't do it yourself. What do you prefer? The easy way or public humiliation? I stayed silent. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to defend myself. Stephen smiled. A cruel smile. The smile of someone who knows they've won. Think it over. I'll give you until Friday. If you don't agree by Friday, I'm starting the conservatorship process, and I promise you, I'm going to win. He left, got in his car and sped off, tires screeching against the asphalt. I stood there, clinging to my bag of documents, feeling everything I had built that morning fall apart. I entered my house like a zombie. I left the bag on the table. I sat on the sofa, and I stared at the wall, without thinking, without feeling, just breathing. I don't know how much time passed. Maybe an hour, maybe 2, until I heard a knock on the door. It wasn't Stephen. The knock was soft, timid. I got up and opened it. It was a young man in his 30s with dirty work clothes and a baseball cap. He had dark eyes and a scar on his left cheek. Mrs. Helen? Yes? I don't know if you remember me. I'm Manny Trevino. You helped me many years ago when I was a kid. I searched my memory. Manny Trevino. The name sounded distant, like an echo from another life. My mother worked cleaning houses, like you. She got sick with cancer when I was 12. You lent her money for the treatment, $2,000. We were never able to pay you back. My mother died the next year. I was left alone. I went to live with an uncle. I lost touch with you. I started to remember. A thin woman with sad eyes who worked with me in the houses. Her name was Hortensia Trevino. She had died young, 42, left a son, a quiet boy with big eyes. Manny. Yes, ma'am. That's me. A few days ago, I came looking for you. I wanted to pay you back the money, with interest. But when I got here, I saw your son yelling at you at the gate. I heard what he was saying, and I decided to stay close, to make sure you were okay. Why? Because you saved my mother. You gave her 6 more months of life. 6 months where she could say goodbye to me, prepare me, tell me she loved me. That's priceless, and I owe you everything. Manny put his hand in his pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. Here's the $2,000, plus $2,000 in interest. It's $4,000 in total. I know it's not much after so many years, but it's what I could save. I tried to refuse, but he insisted. He put the envelope in my hands firmly. And there's something else, ma'am. I work as a truck driver. I know people, lawyers, accountants, people who can help you. If you'll let me, I want to be your ally in this. I want to help you fight against your son, because you don't deserve this. The tears I had held back all morning finally came. I couldn't stop them. Manny hugged me as if I were his own mother, and I cried on his shoulder. I cried from relief, from gratitude, from hope. Manny came into my house and sat in the living room. I made coffee with trembling hands. I still couldn't believe he was here, that someone had come to help me without me even asking. After so many years of loneliness, of feeling invisible, someone saw me. I put the cups on the table. Manny took his and drank a long sip. Then he looked at me seriously. Mrs. Helen, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. To help you, I have to know exactly what's happening. And I told him. Again. The same story I had told Mr. Wallace, but this time I added more details. I told him about the deposits Stephen claimed to have made, about the threat to prove he had paid for the house, about my fear that it was true. Manny listened in silence. When I finished, he sat thinking. His fingers drummed on the table. Then he spoke. This money he says he deposited. Do you have the bank statements? No. I only keep the payment receipts. I never asked for the full statements. We need to get them. Tomorrow, we'll go to the bank and request the complete payment history for the mortgage. All the transactions. If Stephen really paid, it will be registered. But everything you paid for 30 years will also be registered. And that's what matters. He was right. I had paid for 3 decades. Stephen only for the last few years. That had to count for something. There's something else, ma'am. Stephen mentioned he's going to start a conservatorship process. To do that, he needs to prove you're not in a condition to care for yourself. He's going to try to get medical reports, witness statements from neighbors, anything to back him up. We have to get ahead of him. Mr. Wallace said the same thing. That I need a medical certificate. Exactly. But not just that. We need witnesses who will testify in your favor. People who will say you're fine. That you're independent. That you can make decisions. I don't have anyone. Only Carmen. And she already told Stephen I went to see her. Manny shook his head. You have more people than you think. I'll testify. And I know others. People from the neighborhood who know you, who have seen you for years, walking alone, doing your shopping, living your life. They can help. I felt overwhelmed. This man, this stranger who was a boy the last time I saw him, was willing to fight for me. More than my own son ever had. Why are you doing this, Manny, after all these years? Why? He smiled. A sad smile. Because my mother taught me that debts of the heart are the most important, and because I see my mother in you, alone, vulnerable, being attacked by people who should be protecting her. I'm not going to stand by and do nothing. That night, Manny stayed late. We made a list of everything we needed to do. First, go to the bank. Second, get the medical certificate. Third, talk to Mr. Wallace and show him the $4,000. Fourth, find witnesses. Fifth, prepare a strategy for when Stephen returned on Friday. When Manny left, it was almost 11 at night. I sat in the living room, looking at the envelope with the money. $4,000. Enough to pay the lawyer and have a safety cushion. Enough to feel less helpless. On Tuesday morning, Manny arrived at 9 o'clock sharp. He brought his truck, an old red pickup with a dented bumper. He helped me in and drove to the bank. The branch was crowded. We waited 40 minutes before we were helped. When it was finally our turn, a young woman in a blue uniform asked us to sit at her desk. How can I help you? I need the complete payment history for my mortgage, from when the account was opened until today. The young woman typed something into her computer. Full name and account number. I gave her the information. She kept typing. Then she frowned. Ma'am, this account is closed. The mortgage was paid off 3 years ago. What? Your house has no more debt. It was paid in full in March of 2022. I felt the air leave my lungs. The mortgage was paid. Completely. For 3 years. Stephen had lied. He wasn't paying anything. There was no debt he could claim. Can you give me the records of that payoff? Who made the final payment? The woman typed again. The final payment was made by Mrs. Helen Mendez, with a withdrawal from her savings account. $16,000. $16,000. I had paid off the house completely, with my savings. Savings I had gathered my entire life. And I had forgotten. My memory had failed me. But the records don't lie. Can you print all of that? The complete history. Yes, ma'am. It will cost $10 for the service. Pay her, I told Manny. He took out the money and paid. 10 minutes later, we had a thick folder with all the documents. 30 years of payments, and the final receipt proving that I, not Stephen, had paid off the debt. We left the bank in silence. Manny drove to a nearby diner. He ordered 2 coffees, and we sat by the window. Stephen lied, I said. Yes, he lied. He probably showed you fake screenshots or deposits he made for other things. Not for the mortgage, but the important thing is that now we have the truth. Documented, signed by the bank. I opened the folder and looked at the papers. Every payment was registered. Every cent Ernest and I had sacrificed was there. In ink. Permanent. This changes everything. Yes. But we can't get complacent. Stephen will try to attack from another angle. The conservatorship is still a threat. We need to keep building your defense. That afternoon, we went to Mr. Wallace. We showed him the bank documents. He reviewed them carefully, page by page. When he finished, he took off his glasses and smiled. This is pure gold. With this, your son can't claim the house. He has no legal basis. The property is yours, completely. But he can still ask for conservatorship. Yes, but we're going to make it difficult for him. Tomorrow, I'll take you to the doctor. A psychiatrist I trust. He'll evaluate your mental state and issue a certificate. With that, plus these documents, plus the witnesses that young Manny is going to find, your son is going to have to fight very hard, and he'll probably lose. We left the lawyer's office with a clear plan. Manny drove me back home. Before I got out, he took my hand. Mrs. Helen, there's something else I need to tell you. What? I didn't just come because I owed my mother. I came because I investigated your son. I have a friend who works at the courthouse. He told me that Stephen already started the conservatorship process. 2 weeks ago, before the social worker's visit, before everything, he had this planned for a while. I felt a pit in my stomach. So the social worker didn't come because Stephen was worried. She came because he had already started the legal process. Exactly. And there's more. Stephen submitted false documents to the court. He says you suffer from dementia, that you forget to eat, that you leave the stove on, that you get lost in the street. All lies. But if the judge doesn't have proof to the contrary, he might believe him. How did you get that information? My friend let me see the file. He shouldn't have. But he also has an elderly mother, and it hurt him to read what your son wrote about you. So he helped me. We have to take this information to Mr. Wallace. I already did. He's going to request an official copy of the file tomorrow, and he's going to file a countersuit for defamation and legal abuse. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Stephen didn't just want to take my house and my money. He was also destroying my reputation, telling lies about me so a judge would declare me incompetent. Manny squeezed my hand. You're not alone, ma'am. I'm going to be here, and we're going to win. I promise you. On Wednesday, I went with Mr. Wallace to see the psychiatrist. He was a man in his 50s, bald, with a soft voice. He asked me many questions. What day was it? Who was the president? How much was 7 + 8? What did I have for breakfast? Where did I live? How many children did I have? I answered everything correctly. Then he gave me memory tests. He showed me drawings and asked me to remember them 5 minutes later. He had me solve simple math problems. He asked me to write a complete sentence. I passed everything. At the end of the evaluation, the doctor smiled at me. Mrs. Mendez, you are perfectly lucid. There is no sign of dementia or cognitive decline. I'll issue the certificate today. I left that appointment feeling a small but important victory. I had the paper that proved I was fine, that Stephen was lying. On Thursday, Manny brought 3 people to my house. They were neighbors from the neighborhood. People who knew me by sight. One was the owner of the corner store. Another was the mailman who delivered my mail. The third was a woman who lived 2 houses down and always said hello when she saw me. Mr. Wallace took statements from all of them. They said they saw me regularly, that I was always well-dressed and oriented, that I did my shopping alone, that I paid my bills on time, that they had never seen me confused or lost. They were simple testimonies, but they were true, and they were powerful. Friday arrived. It was the day Stephen had said he would return, the day of the ultimatum. I was prepared. I had all the documents organized on the table, the bank history, the medical certificate, the witness statements, everything. At 10 in the morning, I heard a car. It was Stephen, and he was with Jessica. Again. They knocked on the door. I opened it. Stephen walked in without asking permission. Jessica stayed behind, watching with those cold eyes. "Well, Mom, have you decided?" "Yes, Stephen. I've decided. And? I'm not leaving. I'm not going to live with you. And you're not going to take my house." Stephen let out a dry laugh. "We'll see about that." I smiled. A calm smile. And I handed him an envelope. "What's this? Open it." Stephen opened the envelope. Inside was a copy of the bank history. His eyes scanned the pages. His face turned pale. "How did you get this?" "I went to the bank. And I found out you lied. The house is paid off. Has been for 3 years. With my money, not yours." Stephen crumpled the papers in anger. "This doesn't change anything. I'm still going to get the conservatorship." I took out another envelope. I gave it to him. "This is the medical certificate. From a certified psychiatrist. It says I'm perfectly fine." Stephen opened it. "Read it." His jaw tensed. "And this," I said, handing him a third envelope, "are the witness statements confirming I am independent and capable." Stephen threw the papers on the floor. "I don't care. I'm going to fight this to the end. Do it. But you're also going to receive a countersuit for defamation, because you lied to the court, and that's a crime." Stephen looked at me with pure hatred. Jessica stepped closer and put a hand on his shoulder. "Let's go. This isn't worth it." And they left. Without saying goodbye, without looking back, leaving the papers scattered on the floor, I closed the door. And for the first time in weeks, I took a deep breath. After Stephen left, I stood in the middle of the living room, looking at the papers scattered on the floor. I didn't pick them up right away. I left them there as evidence, as a reminder that the battle was just beginning. Stephen had come with arrogance and left with rage. And the rage of a cornered man is dangerous. Manny arrived half an hour later. He had arranged to come by to make sure everything was okay. When he saw the documents on the floor, he picked them up carefully and put them on the table. How did he react? With fury. He said he's going to fight to the end. He will. But now, so will we. And we have better weapons. We sat in the kitchen. Manny took out a small notebook and began to write. "Mrs. Helen, we need to think several steps ahead. Stephen is going to try to discredit you in other ways. He might talk to neighbors. He might invent stories. He might even try to provoke situations that make you look bad. We have to protect you from all that. How? First, we're going to install a camera at the entrance of your house. If Stephen comes back and makes a scene, it will be recorded. Second, you're going to start keeping a journal. You'll write down everything. Every day, what you did, where you went, who you spoke to. That will prove your mind is clear and your life is orderly. Third, we're going to open a new bank account, just in your name. And we'll transfer your pension there. That way Stephen can't track your financial movements. All of that sounded complicated, but necessary. I can do that. You're not alone. I'm going to help you with every step." That same afternoon, Manny brought a small camera. He installed it above the front door. It pointed directly at the gate and the entrance. Anyone who came would be recorded. He showed me how to view it on my phone. It was simple. I just had to open an app, and there was the image in real time. He also bought me a new notebook, hardcover, green. On the first page, I wrote Helen Mendez's journal, and below it, the date, Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. In that first entry, I wrote everything that had happened in the last few days, from Stephen's call to his visit today. I wrote with a shaky but clear hand. Every word was a piece of my defense. Every line was my voice. On Friday, Manny took me to the bank again. We opened a new account, just in my name. No beneficiaries. No authorizations for anyone else. We requested that my pension be deposited directly there starting next month. The woman at the bank explained the change would take about 15 days. But after that, everything would go to the new account. "Now your son can't access your money," Manny said as we left the bank. "Even if he gets the conservatorship, he'll have to fight for every cent." I felt safer, more protected. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control over my own life. On Saturday morning, Mr. Wallace called me on the phone. Mrs. Mendez, I have news. The court has accepted our countersuit. Stephen was notified yesterday. And furthermore, the judge assigned to the conservatorship case has requested a hearing. He's going to hear from both sides before making any decision. That's good for us. It means he won't decide based solely on the papers Stephen submitted. When is the hearing? In 2 weeks, November 8th. You have to be there, well-dressed, calm, answering clearly. It will be your chance to prove that Stephen is lying. I'll be ready. And I mean it, ma'am. No nerves, no tears, just facts, just the truth. The judge needs to see a capable woman in you, not a fragile victim. I understand. I hung up the phone and sat down to think. 2 weeks. 14 days to prepare. To make sure that when I was in front of that judge, he would see me for what I really was. A 71-year-old woman who still had strength, who could still make decisions, who still deserved respect. Manny came that afternoon. He brought food, roasted chicken and rice. We ate together in the kitchen. It was strange. It had been years since I'd shared a meal with someone. Since Ernest died, I always ate alone. But with Manny there, the kitchen felt less empty, less cold. You need to practice for the hearing, he said, serving more rice onto my plate. The lawyer is right. You have to be calm. You have to answer without hesitating, without breaking down. How do I practice that? I'll ask you questions, the same ones the judge might ask you, and you'll answer, over and over, until the answers come out naturally. And so we did. Every afternoon for the next few days, Manny would come over and ask me questions. What is your full name? How old are you? Where do you live? How long have you lived there? Who paid for the house? Your son says you can't take care of yourself. What proof do you have that he's lying? At first I stumbled. I got nervous. I forgot details. But with each repetition, the answers became firmer, clearer, more confident. On Sunday, I went to church. I hadn't gone in months, but I felt like I needed to be there. I needed a moment of peace. The church was full. I sat in the last pew. I listened to the pastor talk about forgiveness, about letting go of resentment, about trusting that divine justice always comes. But I didn't want divine justice. I wanted human justice. I wanted Stephen to pay for what he was doing. I wanted the world to know what kind of son he was. As I was leaving the church, a woman approached me. She was older than me, 80 perhaps. She walked with a cane. Helen Mendez? Yes, I'm Joanne Adams. I worked with you many years ago. Cleaning houses, Joanne. I remembered her. A small woman with a loud laugh. We had worked together at a rich family's house. She cleaned the bathrooms. I cleaned the bedrooms. Joanne? How long has it been? She smiled. I heard what your son is doing. People talk. This is a small town. We all know everything. I felt ashamed. I didn't want people to know. I didn't want to be the neighbor's topic of conversation. Don't be ashamed, Joanne said, as if reading my mind. You're not the first mother a son has done this to, and you won't be the last. But I want you to know, if you need witnesses, I'll speak for you. I'll tell the judge I've known you for 50 years. That you were always hardworking, honest, strong, that you don't deserve this. The tears came without permission. Joanne hugged me. She smelled like lavender and talcum powder. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just fight. And win. That same afternoon, Mr. Wallace came to my house. He brought more documents, papers for me to sign. Sworn affidavits, authorizations, all the legal paperwork needed for the hearing. He also brought me a copy of the files Stephen had submitted to the court. I read it with a racing heart. Every line was a lie. It said I left the doors unlocked, that I forgot to turn off the stove, that I went out on the street in my bathrobe, that I talked to myself, that I confused people, that I got lost in my own neighborhood. None of it was true, but it was there, in writing, signed by Stephen, submitted to a judge. How can he lie like this? Mr. Wallace closed the folder, because he wants to win, and he knows that if he can't prove you're unwell, he loses everything. The house, the money, the control. That's why he's willing to destroy your reputation, We're going to prove he's lying. Yes, but you have to be prepared. At the hearing, Stephen is going to say horrible things. He's going to invent stories. He's going to try to make you look bad. You can't react. You can't scream at him. You can't cry. You just have to calmly tell the truth. The judge will notice the difference. The days passed slowly. Every morning I got up early. I showered, got dressed, ate breakfast, wrote in my journal, did my housework, watered the plants, swept the patio. I documented everything. I wrote it all down. Manny came every day. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes he just came to sit with me, to keep me company, to remind me I wasn't alone. One afternoon, while we were having coffee, he asked me something no one had asked before. "Mrs. Helen, if you win this case, if you manage to get Stephen to stay away, what are you going to do next? How are you going to live?" I had never thought about it. I had always been focused on surviving, on defending myself, but I had never thought about what would come after. I don't know. You need to know, because that's what will give you strength. You have to have something to fight for, something you want to do, something that excites you. I thought about it. What excited me? It had been so long since I'd felt excitement for anything, just fatigue, just sadness, just routine. But there was something small, something I had dreamed of years ago and never did. I always wanted to learn how to drive. Manny smiled. Then that's what it will be. When you win, you're going to learn to drive. I'll teach you. That promise stayed with me. It became my motivation, my light at the end of the tunnel. I wasn't just going to win this battle. I was also going to live, really live, for the first time in a long time. On Wednesday, a week before the hearing, I received a letter. It was from Stephen. I opened it with trembling hands. "Mom," it said, "I know things are tense between us, but it doesn't have to be this way. We can still fix this. If you agree to come live with us, I'll drop the lawsuit. We'll forget everything. Start over. Think about it. You still have time. Your son who loves you, Stephen." It was a trap. I knew it immediately. Stephen was losing. He knew he had a weak case for the hearing. That's why he was offering peace now. But it wasn't peace. It was surrender. It was handing him everything without a fight. I tore up the letter. I threw it in the trash. And I continued to prepare. On Thursday, Mr. Wallace took me to buy new clothes. A simple beige dress, black low-heeled shoes, a light brown cardigan. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant, just dignified clothes. The clothes of a woman who respects herself. On Friday, 2 days before the hearing, Manny brought Joanne to my house. The lawyer was there too. Joanne gave her official testimony. She talked about how she knew me, about the years we worked together, that she had always seen me as capable, independent, lucid. When she finished, the lawyer had a smile on his face. "With this, Mrs. Mendez, Stephen has nothing, absolutely nothing." On Saturday, I rested. I did nothing but sit on the patio and look at the sky. It was cold. November had arrived with wind and gray clouds, but I felt strangely calm. On Sunday, the day before the hearing, I went to church again. This time I didn't sit in the back. I sat up front. I closed my eyes and prayed. I didn't pray to win. I prayed for strength, for clarity, for dignity. When I left the church, Manny was waiting for me outside. "Ready for tomorrow?" Ready. On Monday, November 8th, I woke up at 5 in the morning. I hadn't slept well. I spent the night tossing and turning, reviewing every answer, every document, every detail. But when I opened my eyes and saw the gray light of dawn coming through the window, I knew it was time. Today would define everything. I showered with hot water. I put on the beige dress I had bought, the black shoes, the brown cardigan. I combed my hair carefully. I put on minimal makeup, just powder and pink lipstick. I wanted to look like what I was, a dignified woman, a capable woman. Manny arrived at 7. He brought coffee and donuts. We ate breakfast in silence. I could barely eat. My stomach felt heavy as a stone. "You have the truth on your side," Manny said, "and that's stronger than any lie. At 8:30, we left for the courthouse. Mr. Wallace was waiting for us at the entrance. He wore a dark suit and a red tie. He looked serious. Professional? Remember, Mrs. Mendez. Calmness, clarity, truth, nothing more. We entered the building. It was large, cold, with marble floors that echoed with every step. We went up to the second floor. The courtroom was small. There were wooden benches, a large desk at the front where the judge would sit, and 2 tables, one for us, one for Stephen. We sat down, me in the middle, the lawyer to my right, Manny to my left. We waited. At 9 o'clock sharp, Stephen walked in. He came with Jessica and his own lawyer, a tall man in a gray suit with a leather briefcase. Stephen didn't look at me. He sat at his table with his back to me. Jessica did look at me, with contempt, with coldness. 5 minutes later, the judge entered. He was a man in his 60s, white hair, thick glasses. He sat down and banged a small gavel on the desk. Hearing in the case of Mendez versus Mendez. Petition for conservatorship. The petitioner may proceed. Stephen's lawyer stood up. He spoke with a loud, clear voice. Your Honor, my client, Stephen Mendez, requests conservatorship of his mother, Helen Mendez, age 71, due to cognitive decline and lack of capacity to make decisions. We present evidence that Mrs. Mendez is living in precarious conditions, cannot manage her finances, and represents a danger to herself. Lie after lie. But the lawyer said them with such confidence that they sounded true. What evidence do you present? Testimonies from neighbors who have seen Mrs. Mendez confused, reports that she leaves the stove on, unpaid bills, and a report from the social worker who visited the home. Mr. Wallace stood up. Objection, Your Honor. Those testimonies are anonymous and unverifiable. The bills are all paid on time, as we will demonstrate, and the social worker did not issue any negative report. The judge looked at the documents. Do you have copies of these anonymous testimonies? Yes, Your Honor, Stephen's lawyer said, handing over some sheets. The judge reviewed them, frowning. These testimonies are not signed. They have no legal value. What else do you have? Stephen's lawyer hesitated. We have the direct testimony of my client, Your Honor. He can testify about his mother's condition. Proceed. Stephen stood up. He walked to the front. The judge asked him to swear to tell the truth. Stephen swore. Then he began to speak. My mother isn't the same anymore, Your Honor. She forgets things. She repeats questions. She can't take care of herself. I just want what's best for her to be safe, for her to be protected. His voice sounded sad, convincing, almost believable. But I knew every word was a lie, Mr. Wallace stood up to cross-examine him. Mr. Mendez, when was the last time you visited your mother before initiating this process? Stephen hesitated. A few weeks ago. How many weeks? You don't remember exactly. It was more than a month, wasn't it? Maybe. And in that visit, did you notice any strange behavior? She was. Distracted. Distracted or lucid? Distracted, Mr. Wallace pulled out a paper. I have here the call log between you and your mother for the last 6 months. Only 3 calls. All initiated by her, none by you. Is that the behavior of a worried son? Stephen pressed his lips together. I was busy. Too busy to call your mother, but not too busy to start a legal process to take her house. Objection, shouted Stephen's lawyer. Speculation. Withdrawn, said Mr. Wallace. Mr. Mendez, is it true that you told your mother the house was paid for with your money? Yes. And is it true that you showed her alleged proof of bank deposits? Yes. Because I did pay. Mr. Wallace pulled out another document. This is the official history from the mortgage bank. It shows that Mrs. Helen Mendez paid off the mortgage in March of 2022 with $16,000 from her own savings account. There are no deposits made by you. You lied to your mother. Stephen's lawyer stood up. Objection. He's attacking my client's character. I am establishing a pattern of deceit, Your Honor, which is relevant to this case. Overruled. Continue. Stephen was red, sweating. He looked nervous. Mr. Mendez, Did you submit false documents to this court claiming your mother suffers from dementia? They're not false. She has problems. We have a medical certificate from a certified psychiatrist that says otherwise. Did you review that certificate before filing your petition? No. Why not? Because I know how my mother is. Or because it wasn't convenient for you to know the truth. Stephen didn't answer. Mr. Wallace let him go. Stephen returned to his seat, shaking. Now it was my turn. The judge called me. Mrs. Mendez, please approach. I stood up slowly. I walked to the front. My legs were trembling, but I held myself steady. I swore to tell the truth, and I sat down. The judge looked me straight in the eye. Mrs. Mendez, how old are you? 71, Your Honor. Where do you live? At 122 Maple Street. How long have you lived there? For 42 years. Who paid for that house? My husband and I. For 30 years. And I finished paying it off 3 years ago. With what money? With my savings. $16,000 I saved from working my whole life. Your son says you cannot take care of yourself. Is that true? No, Your Honor. I cook. I clean. I do my shopping. I pay my bills. I live independently. Why do you believe your son initiated this process? I fell silent. I took a deep breath. And I told the truth. Because he wants my money, my pension, my house. And the only way he can get it is by declaring me incompetent. The judge wrote something down. Then he asked me more questions. What day was it? Who was the president? How much was 15 plus 20? What had I eaten for breakfast? I answered everything correctly. Without hesitating. Without trembling. You may step down, Mrs. Mendez. I returned to my seat. Manny squeezed my hand. The lawyer smiled slightly. The judge reviewed all the documents. The medical certificate, the witness statements, the bank history, the paid bills, everything. Finally, he spoke. I have reviewed the evidence presented by both parties. The petition for conservatorship is based on unproven claims that are contradicted by solid medical and testimonial evidence. Mrs. Helen Mendez has demonstrated that she is in full command of her mental and physical faculties. There is no legal basis to grant this conservatorship. The petition is denied. He banged the gavel. Furthermore, I am ordering Mr. Stephen Mendez to refrain from contacting or harassing his mother, under penalty of a restraining order. This hearing is concluded. Stephen jumped up, shouting, "This is unfair. She can't take care of herself. She's going to end up dead in that house." The judge looked at him sternly. "Mr. Mendez, control yourself, or I will find you in contempt." Stephen stormed out of the courtroom, furious. Jessica followed him, without looking at me, without saying anything. I just sat there, shaking, crying. But this time, from relief. I had won. We left the courthouse under a cold November Sunday. My legs could barely hold me. Manny took my arm. Mr. Wallace walked on my other side with a discreet smile on his face. "You did very well, Mrs. Mendez. Perfectly." I couldn't speak. The words were stuck in my throat. I just nodded. I was still shaking. But it was a different kind of shaking. It wasn't fear. It was liberation. When we got to Manny's truck, I finally let it all out. I cried. I cried as I hadn't in years. Manny hugged me. He let me soak his shoulder. He didn't say anything. He was just there. The lawyer said goodbye in the parking lot. The judge was very clear. "Stephen is forbidden from approaching you. If he does, call me immediately, and we'll request a formal restraining order." But I think he got the message. He lost. And he knows it. Thank you, Mr. Wallace, for everything. That's what I'm here for. And remember, anything you need, you call me. He left in his old car. Manny and I sat there in silence for several minutes. "Do you want to go home?" "Not yet. Give me a moment." I needed to process what had happened. I had won. Stephen couldn't touch me. He couldn't take my house. He couldn't control me. For the first time in months, I was free. Manny took me to a small coffee shop nearby. He ordered 2 hot chocolates and donuts. We sat by the window. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. I still can't believe it." "Believe it. You fought. And you won. That's real." I drank the hot chocolate slowly. It was sweet and warm. It burned my tongue a little, but I didn't care. I felt alive. What happens now? Now we live. That's what happens. You go on with your life, and Stephen goes on with his, far away from you. But it didn't end there. I knew it didn't. Stephen wasn't the type to accept defeat. He was going to try something else. I knew him too well. That same afternoon, when I got home, I found something strange. The camera Manny had installed showed that someone had been at my gate. At 11 in the morning, while I was at the hearing, I checked the recording. It was Jessica, alone. She had rung the bell. She had waited. Then she left something in the mailbox and left. I went out to check. There was an envelope in the mailbox. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. The handwriting was Jessica's. "Helen," it said, "you won this battle. Congratulations. But this isn't over. Stephen is devastated. You humiliated him in front of a judge. You made him look like a liar, like a thief. He won't forget that. Neither will I. You think you're so smart? That you beat us. But life is long, and things change. We'll see who has the last laugh." It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. It was a threat. Clear. Direct. I showed the letter to Manny when he came over that night. He read it with a frown. "This is harassment. We can report it. I don't want any more courtrooms. I don't want any more fights. I just want to be left alone. Then we'll keep this as evidence, just in case. Just in case." Those words haunted me all night. The following days were strange. I expected to feel peace. I expected to feel calm. But I couldn't. Every noise made me jump. Every car that passed my house made me nervous. I checked the camera constantly, waiting to see Stephen, waiting to see Jessica, waiting for the next attack. But nothing came. A week passed. Then 2. The silence was deafening. Manny kept coming every day. He brought me food. He kept me company. And he kept his promise. He started teaching me to drive. The first time I sat behind the wheel of his truck, my hands were shaking so much I couldn't hold the steering wheel. But he was patient. He explained every pedal, every gear shift, every mirror. "Slowly, Mrs. Helen. There's no rush." Like that. Very good. I drove down the empty street in front of my house. 5 yards. 10, 20. Then I braked too hard and almost hit my head on the steering wheel. But I had done it. I had driven. We practiced every afternoon for 2 weeks. Little by little, I got better. My hands stopped shaking. My foot found the brake without thinking. I started to enjoy it. The feeling of movement, of control, of freedom. But then it happened. It was a Tuesday afternoon. 3 weeks after the hearing, I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard loud banging on the door. It wasn't the doorbell. It was fists pounding on the wood. I opened it slowly. It was Stephen, but it wasn't the usual Stephen. His eyes were red. His hair was a mess. His clothes were wrinkled. He smelled like alcohol. "You," he said, pointing at me. "You ruined me. Stephen, go. You can't be here. I don't care about the judge. I don't care about anything." Jessica left me. She left me because she says I'm a failure, that I couldn't even handle my own old mother. He pushed the door and came in. I backed away. I was scared. This wasn't the manipulative, cold Stephen. This was a broken Stephen. Desperate. Dangerous. "You lost your job, Stephen?" "Yeah." I got fired. Because the scandal from the trial reached the company. They said they couldn't have employees with legal problems, all because of you. My fault? Because I defended myself? Because I didn't let you take everything from me? Stephen moved closer. He raised his hand. I thought he was going to hit me. I closed my eyes, but the blow never came. I heard another voice. It was Manny. He had come in through the door Stephen left open. "Get away from her." Stephen spun around. "Who the hell are you? Her little boyfriend? You ridiculous old woman." Manny got between Stephen and me. "I'm someone who cares about her, and you're going to leave right now. Or I'm calling the police." Stephen let out a bitter laugh. The police. Everyone's against me. My own mother betrayed me. And now she has bodyguards. Manny took out his phone. Last chance. Leave. Stephen looked at him with hatred, but he finally gave up. He took a step back, then another. This isn't over, Mom. Someday you'll need me. And that day, I won't be there. And he left. He stumbled to his car and peeled out, tires screeching. Manny locked the door. He hugged me. I was shaking again. It's over. He's gone. But it wasn't over. Because the next day, I got another visit. This time from the police. 2 officers knocked on my door at 9 in the morning. Mrs. Helen Mendez? Yes. We received a complaint. Your son, Stephen Mendez, reported that you threatened him yesterday, that you told him you were going to burn him alive while he slept. My mouth fell open, but no sound came out. Stephen was making things up again, trying to make me look crazy. Dangerous. That's a lie. He came to my house drunk. He threatened me. And there's a witness. Who? Manny Trevino. He was here. He saw everything. The officers wrote down the name. They asked me more questions. I told them everything. I showed them Jessica's letter. I showed them the camera footage where you could see Stephen entering violently. We'll investigate. If your version is confirmed, your son could face charges for violating a court order and filing a false report. They left. I was left shaking. Manny arrived half an hour later. When I told him, he was furious. This has to end. I'm going to go talk to him. No, please. It will only make things worse. Mrs. Helen, he's not going to stop. Not until someone really stops him. That afternoon, Mr. Wallace called me. Mrs. Mendez, I heard what happened. We're going to request a permanent restraining order against your son, and we're going to press charges for harassment and threats. This ends now. 2 days later, Stephen was arrested, just for a few hours, but it was enough. When he got out, he had a restraining order that prohibited him from coming within 200 yards of me. If he did, he would go to jail. He was also fined $5,000 for filing a false report, money he didn't have. Because Jessica was gone, because he had lost his job, because he had lost everything, and I, finally, could breathe. 3 months passed since the restraining order. 3 months of silence. 3 months without Stephen. No calls, no visits, no threats. At first, I couldn't believe it. Every morning I woke up expecting something bad to happen, but nothing happened, just peace. Manny kept coming every day, not just to protect me anymore, but to accompany me, to share life with me. We ate breakfast together. He taught me to drive. I cooked him his favorite meals. We had become family, not by blood, but by choice, and that was stronger. In February, I got my driver's license. At 71 years old, Manny took me to the test. He was more nervous than I was. When I came out with the paper in my hand, he hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. You did it, Mrs. Helen. You did it. We both cried. From happiness. From pride. From freedom. With my license in hand, Manny helped me buy a car. Nothing fancy. A small, used white sedan. It cost $3,500. I paid for it with the money I had left over after all the legal expenses. The first time I drove alone was a Sunday in March. I left early. I drove around the neighborhood, then onto the highway, toward the lake that was 20 miles from the city. Ernest and I used to go there when we were young, before life became so heavy. I parked by the water. I got out of the car. The air smelled like damp earth and pine. There were ducks swimming near the shore, families having picnics, children running. I sat on a wooden bench. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt something like happiness. It wasn't euphoria. It wasn't overwhelming emotion. It was something deeper. It was peace. It was the certainty that I had survived, that I had fought, that I had won. I took my journal out of my bag. I had brought it with me. I opened to a blank page and wrote, "Today I drove to the lake by myself. Today I felt free. Today I understood that my life didn't end when Stephen betrayed me. It just started over. I'm 71 years old. But I'm still here. I'm still able. I'm still worthy." When I got home that afternoon, there was a letter in the mailbox. I tensed up, but when I opened it, I saw it wasn't from Stephen. It was from Joanne. My old friend. Helen, it said. I heard you learned to drive. I'm proud of you. If you ever want to go out for coffee, let me know. There's still life to live. Your friend, Joanne, I smiled. Yes, there was still life to live. The following months were different. I started going out more, visiting Joanne, going to the market not because I had to, but because I wanted to, driving to places I had never known, nearby towns, overlooks, long, empty roads where I could think. Manny got a better job. As a supervisor at a transportation company, he earned more. But he still came to see me. Now he brought his girlfriend, a sweet young woman who treated me with respect, with kindness. She called me Mrs. Helen. And when she looked at me, she didn't see an old woman. She saw a person. In May, I received a call from Mr. Wallace. Mrs. Mendez, I have news. Stephen has requested to lift the restraining order. He says he wants to talk to you, that he wants to apologize. What do you say? I felt a knot in my stomach. Part of me wanted to hear him out, wanted to believe he had changed, that he had realized what he did. But another part, the part that had learned to protect itself, knew better. Tell him no, that I don't want to see him, that I don't want to talk to him, that he should get on with his life. And I'll get on with mine. Are you sure? Completely. I hung up the phone, and I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. In June, the first year of my new life, I decided to do something I always wanted to do but never dared. I painted my house, not white, yellow, a bright sunny yellow. Manny helped me. We worked for 2 weeks. When we finished, the house looked completely different, cheerful, alive, like I felt inside. The neighbors started to comment, some with admiration, others with criticism. But I didn't care. It was my house, my life, my decision. I also fixed up the garden. I planted flowers, red roses, white daisies, yellow sunflowers. Every morning I watered them. I watched them grow, and I felt that I was growing too. One afternoon in July, while I was in the garden, I saw a car stop in front of my house. My heart sped up, but it wasn't Stephen. It was a young woman, about 25. She got out of the car and walked toward me. Helen Mendez? Yes, my name is Carmen Wallace. I'm Mr. Wallace's niece. He told me your story. I'm a journalist, and I'd like to write about you, about what you lived through, about how you won. I'm not anyone important. That's not true. You're someone who fought when many would have given up, someone who defended herself when everyone expected her to surrender. Your story can help other women, other mothers who are going through the same thing. I thought about it. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to be the center of attention, but if my story could help someone, it was worth it. All right, but tell it like it is. No embellishments, no lies, just the truth, just the truth. Carmen came several times over the next few weeks. She interviewed me, took photographs. She spoke with Manny, with Joanne, with Mr. Wallace. And in September, the article was published in the local newspaper. The headline was, "The Woman Who Wouldn't Give Up." It told my story from the beginning. The phone call, the betrayal, the legal battle, the victory. Everything. The day it was published, I received dozens of calls. Women thanking me, telling me they were also going through something similar, that my story had given them hope, that it had given them the strength to fight. I wasn't a hero. I was just a woman who had defended what was hers. But if that inspired someone else, then all the pain had been worth it. Today is October. 1 year since I overheard that call. 1 year since my life fell apart and I had to rebuild it. I still live in my yellow house. I still drive my white car. I still water my flowers. Stephen never came back. I heard he moved to another city, that he started over. I don't know if he learned anything. I don't know if he'll ever understand what he did to me. But it's not my problem anymore. I let go of that burden. Manny is still my family. Joanne too, and all the women who write to me, thanking me. They're my family now too. At 71, I learned something I should have learned a long time ago. that it doesn't matter how old you are, that it doesn't matter how many times you fall. You can always get up. You can always fight. You can always choose your own life. I chose mine. And I don't regret it. If you're going through something similar, if someone is trying to take what's yours, if you feel like you can't go on, listen to me. Yes, you can. You are stronger than you think. Get help. Fight. Don't give up. Because your life is yours. And no one has the right to take it from you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. If this helped you in any way, leave me a comment. Share this story with someone who needs it. And remember, it's never too late to start over. Never.